How's it going, guys? Welcome to Audio Addiction. We have Ascend Like Wolves with us tonight, and they can say their names and what they do in the band.
I am Al, and I do vocals in a set like Wolves.
And my name's Cody. I play the drums.
There we go. Well, I remember I was talking... we were talking before this off camera, but also it just came to my head that Al and I did that interview at Voltage like 3 years ago, and
Wow.
all I remember is my interaction with Kyle. He was like, I don't want to throw him under the bus, but it was pretty funny. All I remember was him like grabbing onto me at the end of the show and was like, "Yo, man, do you interview bands and stuff?" And I was just like, "Yeah, man." I was like, "I interview bands," and then Al, he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna introduce you to Al," and then that's how I met Al, and then the rest of you guys, obviously. And I was just like, and then all I remember was Al was like, "I think we should do an interview, man. Why don't we just do one right now?" And I was just like, "Okay, let's do it." So then we did it in like the little alleyway behind Voltage or inside Voltage.
Is that what happened?
I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
I warned you ahead of time. I was like, I'm very drunk.
Alcohol was involved in all of this.
Well, Kyle, I don't even think remembers, but I remember I saw him at another show, and he came up to me, and he's like, "Dude, I am so sorry." He was like, "I was blasted. I felt so bad of like things going on," and I was like, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's okay. It's no problem, dude. It's like it's all good." And he was like, "Oh, okay, cool." He was just gone. Like.
Well, I'm glad the liquor friends, man, is a great introduction.
There we go. Well, I mean, the first thing, guys, it's been, like I said, it's been a little bit since the first interview, and I obviously had Al, and it's good to have you on here, Cody. But what have you guys been doing? There's been a lot of changes. You got a new record coming out very soon. So what's been going on? Tell the people what's been happening.
Take this one, Code Man.
Yeah, sure. Well, we've been working on our new album, Mystic Auras, which coming out February 19th. Pretty stoked on it. It's been in the works for about like 2.5 years now. The pandemic really made it difficult as well to get this out in time, but really stoked on it. Got some really cool guest features on it as well, which love that. But yeah, we've had 4 singles come out already. The reception has been great. I've really appreciated it, and hopefully everybody enjoys it. And hopefully we can eventually do some shows. Trying to be optimistic here when the world's not so optimistic, but hopefully sooner than later we can get out there and perform all this stuff. But yeah, it's been pretty much what we've been focusing on.
Yeah, I know. I have already had the privilege of listening through to it. I want to say I've listened to it now. Oh man, it's probably close to 50 times now. I'd say. So I still got a little bit more. I still got a little bit more time to listen to it and get a spicy review out of it. But I've really enjoyed it so far. I think it is definitely a step up from Spirit Vessel, which I loved a lot actually too. But this record just feels like a little bit more like, to me, the only adjective I could use to describe it is like impressive, because like you said, you have a ton of features on this record. So my question would be is like, how did you guys get all of that formulated, and were they selected to do these certain songs, or did you have like a thought process in your head? You're like, these guys would work really good on this, like this feature would work really good on this song, or was it just kind of like, oh, well, whoever we get, we're just gonna put on a track and that's it?
Well, I think probably it's funny that you say that. Probably like a little bit of both. Like Cody was saying earlier, we've been working on this for a long time, and I remember right after we came out with Spirit Vessel, I had a bunch of money saved up for this specifically because I think collaborating in this genre is something that probably isn't frequently mostly done by most bands. I think it's more common in rap, and there's some sort of like, I don't know if you want to like use the word stigma or what the word is, but I feel like it's like frowned upon to have like, some people frown upon features on albums, and I don't feel that way. I think it's cool when that happens. So I think like the idea that we had at the time was to kind of create a big atmosphere for Mystic Auras, and it's kind of like more or less inspired by the artwork and like the story of the album too. But we definitely plan to have JT on the album for sure. And when me and Blake were working on Dissolve, I jokingly kind of just mentioned to him like, "Oh, dude, like let's get Buka Nile on this track," and I hit her up like a couple months later, and she said yes, and like their management said yes, and we got the green light. So that worked out in our favor. And Matteo from Novelists, I think we played a show with Novelists that you might have been at. I don't know.
Yes,
I'm not
yeah.
sure if you were there. Were you there?
It was the one at Voltage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was tight.
And
Good.
I brought him some cold medicine from Walmart, and he was really sick on tour, and he was like so appreciative of that, and me and him have been like really good friends ever since. And yeah, like hitting up about the guest vocal was like second nature. He was like totally down to do it. So I think the only one that wasn't necessarily planned was Brian from Currents. Initially, that's Death Effect is kind of Nick's song, and Dissolve is more or less like my song. So he wanted to get Ken from Crossfaith on it, but we didn't have enough time, unfortunately. Like we really had to hand this record, so it was almost like last minute. But since we've been hanging out with Currents a lot recently, I just shot a message over to Brian, and I was like, "Hey, like, would you be interested in jumping on this track?" And he was like, "Hell yeah, dude!" Like, and he did it in like 2 days, bro. It was insane, like turnaround time. But yeah, I think like every vocalist did a phenomenal job on this album, and I'm so happy and proud of their vocals. And they wrote all their own parts too. And
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a long time in the making, and I'm so glad that it came into fruition, like very, very. I don't want to use the word effortlessly, but it feels that way sometimes because it feels like it all just happened for a reason and almost organically in a sense.
Yeah, I felt like all of the tracks, all like if I didn't know that the features were on there, and I just like they were just kind of like, because I know some bands like have features, but they're not necessarily, I don't want to say they're not credited, but they're just like not, I guess, posted or whatever. And I would have thought like, man, this would have just like felt so smooth that I would have been like, you know what? I was like, either Nick or Al sounds a little different, or they have like a feature on it, just because it just felt so smooth. And I mean, if I had the personal bias of which one's my favorite, that I mean, obviously I love all the tracks, but if I had to pick one of the features that I enjoyed the most, I think I liked Matteo's the most, honestly, just because I feel like I felt like he didn't scream as much on the last Novelist record, and so I like kind of missed that. And then I listened to this track, and I was like, damn, I was like, he went in. I was like, he went hard for that track, and I was like, I'm about it.
It's like a minute feature.
Yeah. And I also felt like JT did a really good job. My first instinct when I listened to Bloom was like, it literally, that breakdown part feels very Era-esque, and I was just like, it just fits so well, like his vocal parts just fit so well, and that, so I was just like, this is on point. I mean, the one that probably surprised me the most was Buka's, just because I wasn't really expecting it to be that way, I guess, per se, just because it is a little bit of a slower track. I was like, I'm not expecting this, but I like the curveball aspect of it. So
yeah.
What'd you say, Cody?
I was like, it's like our ballad song on the album.
Yeah, I was definitely like surprised throughout the entire record. I was just like, they really kind of, like I said, I was just kind of surprised at how much diversity you guys brought into it. And I know that you just mentioned that you guys spent like a long time working on it. So like, I guess what was the song that started out like the way that it is and the way it is on the record, and what was the one that kind of went through the most changes as time went on, or did they all kind of change because you had been sitting on it for a while, I assume? So like, how much of the changes went through into the record that you're just like, I'm glad we did something different with this one as opposed to maybe like the original idea? Well,
I'll let Cody answer most of the majority of this, but just wanted to add on to like your past question too, and I guess this counts for this, but JT and Mateo's guest vocal, I think they were completed in about March of 2019, so it was almost 2 years ago. So and we filmed a video for Bloom like in the same year, like September of that year, and then we finished recording the record in October of 2019. So we've had the majority of this done like for a long time, and I think Brian's and Buka's vocals we got sometime last year, like the middle or before last year. So it's definitely a long project, and I think the first song that we actually had a demo for was Deja Vu. And correct me if I'm wrong, Cody, but I think we worked on that since like the end of 2018 or shortly after we came home for that Asia tour and for Spirit Festival.
Yeah, I mean,
I think is when we kind of started working on it.
Part of Bloom was even written, and I'd say Bloom was probably the first track that we actually really started on this one. And Bloom was written on. We were starting to write that on. It was still a demo for Spirit Vessel, actually, like half of it. So we had like a song written.
Oh yeah.
And then like I was kind of saying, we kind of like broke into like 3 different recording sessions. So like the first 3 songs we tracked, it was Poison, Deja Vu, and Bloom. We tracked in spring of 2019. Then we finished the other ones in I don't know, I guess the fall of 2019.
I think October.
Yeah, October. And then we actually went back into the studio just for like one day to like add some extra stuff to everything and like write 2 interlude tracks. Back in July of 2020 was when we like fully finished everything. And then we got Brian's guest vocal actually in August. Then the first song came out September or October. But anyway, I guess what's interesting about this one is we have like 3 string players. We have Kyle, Blake, and Jeff. And what's interesting with this one is they all basically wrote like 2 to 3 songs each, and like obviously have like each other's own influence on all of them as well. But like a lot of the diversity I think from this album came through the fact that it was written through like 3 different string players with all of our influence on it. Like Kyle wrote Telephone, which is coming up soon, and then Poison, and then Blake wrote Dissolve and Midnight Eyes, and then Jeff wrote the other ones. So obviously with, like I said, all of our influences added to all of them. So we kind of had like a unique thing where we had like 3 songwriters really putting a lot of their effort, giving their all into it. But the track that probably got like changed the most, I would say, would be I don't know, probably Aquamarine. Aquamarine was like a very last minute song. It almost didn't make it to the album. Jeff just kind of was like, hey, I just kind of like randomly wrote this song. I know you guys are going to track this in like a couple weeks, but why don't we add this to the album? And then like, then in the studio, like we definitely like kind of cut some parts out, changed some parts, like, and that one, honestly, I think that's probably my personal favorite track of the album is Aquamarine. I think it has all of the tropes that our band does pretty well, and it's kind of unique. But which is just interesting because it like was such a last minute track, but it just kind of came out really great, I think.
What about yours, Al? Do you have a favorite?
I just got really cold all of a sudden. Like, you know how like Kuwabara gets like feels like he's being possessed in a Yu Yu Hakusho? Yeah. That's how I feel right now. Yeah.
It's my man.
Yeah. He's definitely like the funniest character in the show. I think like kind of like Cody was saying, for Aquamarine was kind of a track that it's interesting. Like the structure of it was slightly different too. While we were recording it, I feel like our band is like is kind of like a dangerous territory or thing to say, but I feel like our band is like one of the only bands kind of that we know of in this area that sort of writes our own music and then brings it to the studio.
I feel you, yeah.
Because I think, you know, like lately, lately it seems it's a lot more common for like producers to write stuff for artists, and like to me that doesn't make any sense. But nonetheless, we had this song. We've had all these songs like 90% completed, and we take them there. So that song's structure, like towards the middle and the end, was completely different, and we tracked all the vocals for it. and we listened to it with Grant McFarland. He's one of the producers for the album, for the first time, like one way through, and we kind of sat there, and he just goes, "Huh," and he just like looks at us, and we're like, "What? Like, did we fuck up?" Or he's like, hold on a second, and he just like drags this one structure from the end and brings it to the chorus, and it like fit perfectly. So like Nick's part that comes right after mine in the chorus, that was never meant to happen, and it just happens like very naturally, and changed the entire song. So I think that's cool when things happen like that in the studio, and I feel like it's kind of rare. I'm sorry, what was the second question?
It was just which one's your favorite one?
Oh,
Do
my favorite song? I don't know. I think honestly, I think like between my two favorite tracks on the album are probably my favorite track's probably Bloom.
Oh,
And the reason for that being is I think everybody instrumentally sounds incredible on there, and it's very unique and dynamic, and to me that's kind of like the standout track on the album, and it kind of showcases what Mystic Auras is. Like when I think of the sound of Mystic Auras, I think of Bloom. But I'd say like the next favorite track of mine's Dissolve, just because I got to collaborate with somebody else entirely that way without Nick, and yeah, it was just kind of like an interesting experience.
Yeah, I definitely love Aquamarine. I'd probably say that's up in some of my favorite ones that were, that I've listened through now at this point. But it's all really good. Like I was definitely surprised. Like I think Eastern Lights was one that I was just like, you know what, this one just rips. Like it comes out, like it's the first track off the record, and I was like, yeah, this is insane. Like this is already good already. And it just kind of continues. I feel like the energy of the record really transfers well between like all of the different songs, and what I loved about it is that they just kind of all like flow together, and while they may not all have like a similar, I guess, sound per se, it's just like everything just feels really smooth and cohesive and stuff, and just the way that like kind of some of the dynamics go, because like I've listened through like with my headphones here like at my desk, and I've also listened to it like while I'm at work, and I just have like just regular like Bluetooth earbuds in my ears. And I think that for listeners who are going to check out Mystic Auras, I'd probably recommend listening to it like with nicer headphones or something like that, because like the dynamics of the record, I don't really feel like are showcased as well like when you're like listening to in your car or something like that. Like you really have to listen to it, and I felt like while I was sitting here and like editing and stuff, like and listening to the record, I was able to pick out different stuff that I wasn't able to pick out when I was just like listening to it just like on a normal, just like, oh, I'm doing other shit kind of a thing, and just like listening to it and like, oh, I like that part, I'm gonna remember that like when I write the review or something like that. Like it was more submersive when you just have like when you're like really sitting down listening to it. It was like, wow, I could hear like a good, a guitar part from like Kyle that I like didn't listen to, like I didn't even register when I was listening to it, like just doing other stuff. So I would recommend doing that if you get the chance, when you get the chance to listen to it. Also, I guess the next question would be, guys, is how was it working with like Grant and Carson? I know Fred Future was with Grant and Carson. I can't remember if Spirit Vessel was as well, but how is it going back with them? And obviously just like, them doing just like super massive bands within our scene. I'm sure it's, nice to have them, literally in your backyard to like, do really good like production stuff. So how was it this time around? And like, I guess what did you take away from the recording process this time?
I can take this one. Honestly, we've actually recorded everything we've really ever done with Grant and Carson since like And the Story Goes. So we love those guys. In my opinion, they're like the gods of metalcore. Honestly, like they're like best in the genre at producing. In my opinion, I mean, they just know exactly what to do. I mean, they record like bands like August Burns Red, Polaris, The New Era. They recorded like Moths to Flames. But yeah, we always plan on going back to them. We have like a great synergy with them. I know personally, like I grew up like kind of like almost so lame to say, but like idolizing like Grant as a drummer because like he was the drummer for the Apocalypse. So I mean, like, and I grew up in like Lancaster and going to the Chameleon Club, and like I mean, like, all my high school bands and stuff played with the Apocalypse a lot, and it was just kind of like crazy to have like that guy be like tracking my drums and like giving me feedback on my drums and stuff, and like it was really awesome. I also love going with them because like unlike a lot of producers in the genre, they like a lot of producers like to put their own take on your music and try to like kind of co-write it and move stuff around. And Grant and Carson, like they'll do that kind of stuff, but like they don't though. So it's like it's great. They just kind of let us do our own thing, come there with our original sounds, and like if something's really whack or ridiculous, they'll like tell us about it. But other than that, they just like love the originality that an artist brings to them, and like I personally really appreciate that when I'm working with somebody. Every time I go there, I feel like I like level up as a musician a little bit, like just from like having such a like high volume producers kind of like tracking me and giving me advice, and like just kind of listening to my drum tracks like being like edited and stuff. But yeah, I love working with those guys, and they're incredible. There's really nothing else I can say besides they're just like the best.
I feel I 100% agree with everything he's saying. I feel like they just understand our vision really well, and like they understand like the band itself and like what we're trying to accomplish for each project. And we kind of just like explain to them what kind of sound we're going for, you know, and especially like in a studio, I feel like that's important to kind of like vocalize that sort of thing, especially like with new direction and whatnot. But yeah, we've been recording with them for like since I think 10 years now.
That's awesome.
Before I remember, we've done a couple of demos and stuff with other people, but originally I think it was just Carson recorded a couple of songs off of And the Story Goes with us in 2011, and then we returned in 2012 to do the whole thing. And that's when Grant joined along, and ever since he's been a part of like Atrium Audio in general.
Yeah. Like
Cody was saying, like we've kind of leveled up, and I that guy is honestly I call him like my master sensei. He's literally has like made me so much of like better of a vocalist in general and musician. And I'm very thankful like they are like in our backyard grilling, cooking us burgers and shit. because I feel like we have such a good formula with them. It's just like fantastic. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's definitely a good feeling. And those guys are funny as hell too. Like they just make us feel like so comfortable.
What were you gonna say, Cody?
I'm happy they still work with the little guys out there, you know.
Yeah.
Like the bands Whisper and Dread and like From Ashes to New and stuff.
Yeah, no, I think that's what I love about them. And Grant Carson, if you want to come on the channel, I'd love to have you on. But I've always appreciated it, especially living in New Jersey and stuff. Like it's so cool. Like I always say, like August Burns Red's like, you know, I feel like Philadelphia is like their second home. You know, I know they're a Lancaster band, but like every time that I see them in Philadelphia, it's just like such a great experience and stuff. And I kind of attribute that to like Atrium, just because like you said, Cody, they just pump out like really insane like metalcore records that I've, you know, loved probably since I started listening to it all the way till now. And, you know, it's like you said, it's really cool to see them work with like smaller bands and stuff, because, you know, there's definitely some like producers out there that kind of like, I feel like I guess I don't want to like throw them under the bus, but just like don't appreciate their roots and having like smaller bands to kind of like, I guess, mentor and like make better and stuff. And I think that you definitely need that, especially if you're like a producer and you want to like have bands come back to you and be like, wow, I love the growth that like, even like I was listening to some of your old stuff like earlier, and I was just like, it's so cool to see like your guys' band's progression over the years, even though like I feel like I've only known you for a couple years. It's just really cool to see that aspect of your band grow, and just to see, you know, at least like the Lancaster scene, just I know it's already like pretty good as it is, but just to see it kind of like get further and further along and have some really awesome bands come out of that scene. But the next question, guys, would be a fun one. If there was one album you wish that you wrote, what album would it be?
I'll take this one for probably Glassjaw, Worship and Tribute. I love Glassjaw, Worship and Tribute. It's like my roots. Like I remember listening to that like in like 7th grade and just being like absolutely blown away. I love the drum style. Like everything sounds great. Yeah, that's probably one of my favorite albums of all time and a big inspiration on me.
Al.
Hold on. I mean, just in general, like my most favorite album that I wish that I would have taken part in writing or anything like that.
Yeah,
right?
Pretty much.
I think like probably my biggest influence as a vocalist is Funeral for a Friend, Casually Dressed and Deep in Conversation, because I feel like when I lived in England, that album was really popular at the time, and I never really heard anything like that before. So when Juno came on Kerrang TV, I know I'm old.
So
when that came on, I was like, whoa, like this is new and different. And I feel like the only other band that kind of like did that for me in that era is this other British band called Fight Star.
Yeah.
And they have a whole album about Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's called Grand Unification. But it's just like a phenomenal album, and they're great musicians and songwriters.
Yeah, False Star. I think we definitely talked about this, Al, but they're like one of those bands that I feel like fly under a lot of people's radars. So go check out False Star. I don't know, what are you doing?
Fight Star.
Fight Star. Damn it!
Yeah.
I fucked it up. I'm definitely gonna get fucked over later, which is fine.
No, but for real, like great band.
Oh, 100%.
Like you said, under the radar, but like fantastic songwriting.
Definitely. Well, I can't wait to I don't know, roast me in the comments. That's usually what people do. So the next question, guys, is a interesting one. Obviously, we have to talk a little bit more about Mystic Auras. I guess it's more specific to Al, but what was your process in terms of lyric writing? Like, what type of themes were you hoping to go for in this record, pretty much? I know there was a few tracks that I kind of have an idea on, but might as well get it straight from you. Well, I guess what were some of the topics you wanted to talk about?
Oh boy. Well, this might take a while if you're down with that. Well, it shouldn't take too long, but so like kind of tying back to. Yeah, there you go. Oh, Cody. Twinsies.
Victory.
Kind of tying back to those golden. I still actually. What was the other monkey that came out?
Sour.
Like the latest monkey.
No, I like sour beers.
Wasn't it? They're like a Blue Moon style golden monkey.
I believe so. All the monkeys are delicious from Victory, and you have to try Victory beer. Victory beer, please endorse Scent Like Wolves, because I buy a lot of their product, and they fuel my music writing. But,
product placement.
I want you to tell this man about your lyric.
We don't need to do that. We need Victory.
Listen, getting on it, guys.
So kind of like tying back to the guest vocal thing. The reason why we had, I guess, like so many features for this album is that it is part of a concept, and I kind of wanted to feature artists that were from different corners of the world. And Ken from Crossfaith would have completed that theory, but it didn't happen like that. It's still it's almost is like that essentially. But yeah, so Mystic Auras is about what drives people's desires, and whether it's like money, love, that type of thing. And I feel like we kind of go in a lot more personally on this record and talk about our feelings for once, and kind of like our own lives. And in some cases there are other subject matters like we tie into the song to make it a little different, and that's not completely just like about us. But yeah, that's kind of what we had based this record about. Compared to previous ones, I think we've never actually done that before. So that was kind of a topic that I talked to Nick about like 2 or 3 years ago now. And A Story Goes was kind of about us being like a young band in the music industry and just kind of like feeling things out and trying to get like a grasp on like what to do without,
Sure,
you
yeah.
know, like back then we didn't really have like, you know, like a booking agent or like a manager or anything. And I feel like without like money and connections and whatnot like that, I feel like most bands are kind of like they struggle to understand what to do. And I feel like the game was also a lot different 10 years ago than
Sure,
it is
yeah.
now. Things have definitely changed. But yeah, so that album's kind of about that. Frigid Future is pretty much about like depression and like looking like not really looking forward to things that are going on in the world in general. You know, we talk about like suicide and like family members that have passed and stuff like that. Like it's really dark. It's actually a really dark album lyrically. And then for Spirit Vessel, we kind of talk about political subject matter, the environment. We talk about war. We sort of talk about how we were stuck in our jobs and like in the same rut for a while, and it was kind of hard to escape. And then we talk about how we don't really understand religion. And I think there's like Almost Human is actually kind of more of like a sci-fi type of song. So up until Mystic Auras, we haven't really gotten to talk about ourselves and our own feelings. And I think it was really cool that we actually did that, and people really relate to that kind of subject matter. So Bloom is about Nick's girlfriend. It's like a long distance relationship song about how, you know, love is complicated and it's hard when you live far away from one another. And
Yeah.
at the time I could sort of relate to it as well because my girlfriend moved into a new apartment without me. So I sort of felt the same way. And sometimes when we write lyrics together, things are just like magic. Like we're really good at communicating, and as you know, we're brothers, so that helps.
Yeah.
But sometimes we don't really write lyrics like that. Like we'll just go into 2 separate rooms and write something, and then we'll come out and like tell each other what we wrote about, and if it works, and then sometimes it doesn't. But sometimes, you know, like for instance, Death Effect. I think in an interview recently, Nick, I didn't really know this, but Nick said that he was kind of influenced by the Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix, and that kind of like inspired him to write about mental illness. So he took that whole song himself and like pretty much like wrote all the lyrics out, and then I sat in his bedroom with him, I think, for a couple of hours, and we worked out some of the kinks for like the melodies and whatnot. Yeah, but Dissolve I wrote by myself, and that's kind of just like a sad song about watching your future that you had envisioned for yourself just dissipate into nothing, and you're kind of like back to square one. So it's a lot of really like interesting songs on there, and I think a couple of them are like breakup songs, just kind of like relationship wise too, because a lot of shit has happened to us in the past decade that we kind of haven't really got to talk about in our music. And yeah, it's really cool that we've been able to. Aquamarine, by the way, is actually a protest song, and we kind of talk about how money is kind of like ruining the world essentially as well. And I think the song title actually came from our guitarist Jeff. I think he just labeled the pre-pro Aquamarine, and I thought it was really cool. Because it's actually also my birthstone and Nick's. So we kept the title, and it kind of reminds me of like mummies or something with like diamonds in their eyes or jewels in their eyes. And I thought it was really cool. And Aquamarine kind of ends like in a sense like Wolves' album would, in my opinion. Very like string oriented, you know what I mean, with like less
Yeah,
instruments
yeah,
kind of like
yeah.
leading out. But yeah, I think overall, Mystic Auras is just like a really personal album lyrically, and I don't know if I missed a couple songs, but yeah, Deja Vu is another good one. I think that song is about how we have been feeling kind of defeated about some of these bands that have just been given the hand, or they're using all their parents' money to like fuel their project. And like a common misconception about A Scent Like Wolves is that we are rich. Cody, dude, we are not rich at all. Like
I'm not either. So
yeah, we've just been really smart about our money. What's that?
What's good?
I
What'd
said
you
we're
say?
in our late 20s and have full-time jobs.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
right.
We've just kind of been smart about saving our money, and yeah, like that's what that song is about. Like it's almost defeating. Like it's like an uphill battle sometimes.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I think more or less like that's what the album is about. And Eastern Lights, I think, is somewhat written about an immortal being that has lived on the earth for 1,000 years or so. But I think it's more or less like a what's the word I'm looking for here?
It's a shout
like you
out.
kind of like learn from your what?
It's a shout out to the show Lucifer.
yeah. It was actually inspired by that show, but I think the moral to the story is that over time you learn from your mistakes, and that's kind of what Eastern Lights is about for the most part. So yeah, it's just like a really dynamic and diverse album, but that's sort of what the concept is.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the
Sorry for
insight.
that long explanation.
No,
But, yeah.
listen, whenever I have bands on, I appreciate this sort of stuff because especially if I'm doing it before I do a review, it gives me a lot of insight into like how the record's formulated, and like, I don't know, I'm just a fucking nerd when it comes to music, so I like enjoy this sort of
Yeah,
like background
us too.
information sort of stuff. But I think it's really interesting, in terms of that. Obviously, I know like Telephone's probably about like a breakup or like relationship stuff. That was something I could clearly pick out. But some of the other ones, I feel like in my head I was like having a harder time to like realize, and then it's just cool to kind of get that actualization of like what you guys are talking about and like kind of piecing everything together in terms of the lyrics and stuff. I will say Cody's drumming is nuts. Like some of the stuff on this, I don't want to spoil it, but some of those fills are, boy, it was awesome. So like, do you feel like, I know Cody, you mentioned about like stepping up, in the studio and stuff. Do you feel like you kind of accomplished that from Spirit Vessel to like to Mystic Auras?
Pretty. I mean, I just always try to outdo what I've done before and like challenge myself. Like I try to write parts that like just if I were like listening to it, I would just be like, oh shit, did he just really do that? Something right there. Like I'm really into like dynamics and like rudiments and ghost notes and stuff. And a huge influence on mine and in the core genre is probably Ocean's 8 Alaska and Chris Turner. And like I was just kind of seeing him. Like I always struggle with like, am I overplaying here, or is this like kind of fitting everything? But I don't know. He kind of opened the door to me to just be like, you know what? Screw what they think. Just do whatever the hell you want, and it's probably going to be pretty cool and unique. And like personally, my biggest like qualm with like the metalcore genre as a whole, and like what I should say, the new core genre that's becoming is it all sounds the same. And as a drummer, there's like literally no like originality in it. It's just basically like cookie cutter parts that like, I don't know. And like with A Scent Like Wolves, we've always done everything we can to like not be that cookie cutter like metalcore band, like we always just try to like put some sort of trope that's just like really out there. And like me personally, I rate my drumming where like I try to like piggyback off of what all the guitars are doing and like the vocals as well. Like I mean, I grew up in like jazz band and stuff throughout like high school and college, so like in jazz you're all about accenting stuff. No matter what instrument's playing it, it's all about like accenting certain things. So I always try to accent like random like lead parts and stuff that are out there, and like which in turn comes with some pretty unique drum parts. but yeah, I also like writing our music where if like you listen to it a couple times, you find like new things that you really never heard before. So like maybe after like the fifth listen or something, you're like, oh shit, I didn't even notice he did that little drum fill there. Like that's a really unique like snare pattern he has right there. But yeah, I appreciate you picked up on that, man. I really put a lot of effort into this one, and the fact that it was written over like almost like a 2.5 year period really allowed me to sit down and like really like challenge myself to kind of make some pretty interesting drum parts.
Oh, certainly. That's how I felt like through most of the songs. I was just like, man, I think it was more so like, I don't want to say jarring because it's not a negative thing, but like I was like sitting back and I was listening to it and I was just like, man, I was not expecting, like, because there's certain things that like I guess you expect from like a typical like progressive metalcore record in certain aspects, but like I felt like some of the drumming was just like way different than what I was expecting in like the best way possible. I was like, man, this is something that I'm not like was totally not expecting, but it completely works with like, you know, either whether the guitar is playing or like there's some bass lines or whatever. Like it just really felt unique and different, and I'm obviously not saying that because you guys are on here and I have to like feel like I have to like pump you guys up, but like genuinely
He's lying, Cody.
Yeah,
no, genuinely I was like when, because it was funny because Cody sent me the record and then Al sent me the actual record, so that I just I just downloaded that shit and I listened to it everywhere now. But I was it didn't really hit me because I was like listening to it in my car and I was driving my girlfriend back to where she lives, and it's like a little under an hour drive, and so I was playing it, I was listening to it, and she like I had to help her get her stuff out of my car, and she was like, that album was really good. Like I don't know who these people are, but I like them a lot. Like, and so I think for like people that are new and that are like not, I wouldn't say particularly familiar with your band, I think you offer a wide variety of things where like, you know, like for example, like Telephone feels like very much like a just clean vocal track. Obviously there's a little snippet of like screams, but like for the most part it's mostly cleans, and then like Def Effect has like mostly like screams, and it's just cool to see like the range, the different types of like, I guess like genre blends that are going in throughout the record. So like for me, every listen, like you said, Cody, it brings out something different that I wasn't particularly expecting, and I think that's what always keeps me coming back to the record for now until I'm done with the review, and then I have to like put it on the back burner a little bit until I do the albums of the year stuff. But it's been an interesting like musical ride, and like I said, every time that I listen through to it on a more like focused basis, I'm just like, this is cool. I don't know how I missed that, but it's awesome. But the next question, guys, a fun one as well.
Thank you, by the way.
You're welcome.
That's very nice. Thank you.
Anytime, guys. You guys can PayPal me money later. No. The next question, guys, if you were to compile a musical supergroup, who would be in your band and why?
All right. Probably on vocals, I'd have Shane Todd from Silverstein. He's probably one of my favorite vocalists throughout the years. I mean, I remember growing up. I remember when I was in like 6th grade, I got DJ of our school dance to play Smashed into Pieces, and I felt like the coolest kid in the world. And honestly, what I love about them too is every album they put out, like they've been around since like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And they just did an incredible album last year, and like every album cycle, it's like stays fresh with the times, but still Silverstein, and I respect that so much. But I'd probably have him on vocals. Drums, I'd probably pick I don't know, maybe Chris Turner, or like he might be a little bit too extreme for that, but I don't know. I just would love, that guy is an absolute monster. If we're talking about a super group here, I don't know about guitars and strings though. I was really into the new Kingdom of Giants album, Passenger.
Oh yeah.
So, like, I don't know. I think if they had like Chris Turner as their drummer on that, and then like maybe like Shane Todd as their vocalist, and like, I don't know, maybe did a little bit more like post-hardcore stuff as opposed to like progressive metalcore, it would be like such an insane concept. But I guess that would be like my super group really summed up on the top of my head.
Al, what do you got for me?
Oh boy. I'm gonna say Charlie Simpson from Fight Star on vocals. Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit on guitar.
Oh my god.
I don't know what the basis of Deftones. I forget what his name is.
I don't either.
Him on bass.
Him
on bass, and then let's see, drummers. Oh, God.
You pick Chris Penny from Dillinger Escape Plan Cambria. He'd be rad with that.
That actually might work. Yeah. I mean, that sounds like a good lineup to me, man. That'd be cool.
That sounds
intense.
intense.
I'd be interested to hear what they would write. That's for sure.
Well, just coming up with the next band super group. If you want to pay me royalties, that'd be very dope.
Right.
Next question, guys. What do you want people to take away from this record? Obviously, I know we've been focusing a lot on that, and I appreciate the attention to detail on these questions. But what do you want people to take away from the entire record, and what you guys are putting out, just as a whole?
I just want people to enjoy it, man. Really. I feel like Mystic Auras is kind of an album you'd throw on in your car at like midnight to 3 a.m.
I did.
Just fucking vibe out to. Yeah. Like I just want people to really enjoy the music, and they can dissect the songs and interpret them however they want to. But for me, I think what matters the most, and I think I can speak for the whole band, is that we just want people to listen to our band and just vibe out to the music.
Give us a chance, It's been a long
100%. I definitely agree with that. Cody, you have anything else, I guess, to add to that?
I guess just that, I feel like people go into when they hear the word metalcore, they're already don't want to like it. In this chat, it's already it's like a hated genre anymore. It's not trendy to like a metalcore band. So I don't even feel like people know what metalcore is anymore. So I don't know. I guess just we call ourselves metalcore, but there's so much. There's so many elements of all different genres that go into this. I personally don't even really listen to metal. I listen to indie music for the most part. So there's just so many elements that if we just have been growing up on. I mean, I was an emo kid in the early 2000s and stuff.
I feel.
And we all just love music so much, and there's just so many influences that come into play for our genre as a whole, and everybody I think has a unique element in writing our music, and especially with this album, it's written by 3 guitarists, so then we have 2 vocalists, a lot of features, and then I try to add some really cool elements on the drums that you wouldn't normally hear in the core genre. So I mean, just give it a chance. There's something that you're gonna find that I think you'll like.
I would agree, and I'm not. They did not pay me to say this. It is one of the more interesting records I've listened to this year, and in the best way possible. I think they really kind of everything that I've known about your band, and obviously I have shouts to Frigid's Future. I have that on vinyl. I'm waiting for that slick Spirit Vessel vinyl pressing. So I can complete the set. But I felt because I hit up Cody and I was like, we should do this interview, and I was like, let me listen to the old stuff. So I threw on Frigid Future just on the player and stuff, and I was listening to it, and I was just listening to that. I've already been listening to Mystic Auras, and then I just put on Spirit Vessel just earlier today, and I think that this is their best foot forward. Everything about it, I think, just screams the next step for the band, and I really do feel like they, obviously they put a lot of heart and soul into it, but I really feel like they really kind of pushed their envelopes in terms of their instruments, whether it be singing or screaming or whatever. And I felt even some of the harmony parts between you and Nick, Al, were just really interesting, and it's cool to hear that dynamic of like his clean vocals versus yours, and like the screams, and I just felt like overall it was just a way bigger step up than I was expecting from Spirit Vessel, because I enjoyed that a lot. But this one just kind of like, we went from like here, we were like the GameStop stock here, and then we just like fucking took that shit into a rocket ship,
What's interesting about Spirit Vessel is that I think we actually had the idea to be a lot heavier on it, and it didn't exactly turn out that way. Like more cleans than what we expected, and I think something that kind of like drives Mystic Auras really, really forward is that Nick has been doing a lot of clean vocals, and he incorporates that on the album. And for him and our band, it's something that we haven't really had, like that dynamic of me and him switching back and forth before. Like this is the first record that he actually does some choruses on too, and I take the verse parts. Even some of the verse parts I scream, like on Eastern Lights too. So for me, it was kind of fun, like revisiting those old elements and like roots of myself, and like passing the torch on to somebody who hasn't gotten to do that yet, that is in the band. And I think overall, like it just creates like a really unique listening experience, with all the different writers tying together the album. So
I'm just waiting for Cody to start singing on the next Spirit, on the next Sound Like Wolves record.
I actually got kicked out of our gang vocal because I could not keep well, so they were just kind of like, you're wasting our time. Get out of this booth and like let the people who can hear this sing.
Well, I don't think it was. I don't think it was gang vocals. I think we had to do isolated like yelling tracks or something for Frigid Future or something like that.
Well, that's never gonna happen.
Oh man, damn, Cody fucked up, but it's okay.
Parts, I got you, but you're never gonna hear out.
Oh shit, damn it. Well, it's all right. You can go check out Mystic Auras, available right now, because this interview will be out by the time this record comes out. So go pick it up. If you missed out on picking it on vinyl, then I'm sorry. They only made 100 of them. Too slow. Maybe there might be another pressing. I don't know, but listen, I got one out of the 100, and that's all that matters. So I'm just gonna.
That's right.
I'm just gonna rub it in all over your faces. So just want to let you know about that. But go check out Ascend Like Wolves. You already know they are the major homies of the channel, so you gotta show them some love. All of the links are below. Please go pre-order it. They have some really cool merch done by our other boy, Corey, the homie. Go check his band out, Zombie Shark. Not that he needs to plug because he's already tight already, but yeah, like super sick. I'm excited for the new record and excited to share my thoughts on it very soon. And you can go pre-order it below. And if you like this content, make sure to subscribe, share it. Make sure to roast me in the comments about, I said fall star instead of fight star. Listen, I'm dyslexic. Sometimes that shit happens, but please feel free to roast me. I can take it. I'm a man. So do it up. And thanks to Al and Cody for coming on tonight to chat.
Thank you for having us, man. It's been a pleasure.